Hello everyone, and welcome back to my chess programming game thing, which we're still on the pseudocode of, but hopefully in a few lessons times we should be able to get onto programming. I would like to say that I know that this kind of seems unneeded, but trust me, it will help us out a lot when we're actually making the program. Also, I would recommend when you're doing pseudocode to actually do it on a piece of paper. It definitely helps you think more, because you can link stuff up, you can just think more on paper. But because I'm giving you this as a presentation on a computer, this for me is easier to do. Although, even myself, I do prefer writing pseudocode on paper. It just allows me to think more. Also, it is up to personal preference. I have been thinking about how we would do the checking whose player's turn is it. What I thought, well, we have here white player as a comment. Here we can have black player. And we don't even need this function, check player turn. Where was it? Oh, I can't even find it now. Check player turn. This is really bothering me. Here we go. Okay. Right? Yeah, okay. So we don't even need that. We're saying that this is the white player. We're saying that this is the black player. So all we need to check is that the input is lowercase or that the input is uppercase, depending on whose player move it is. So we can have something like and piece input, so piece input is uppercase. So I'm not sure how this would be written in Python, but I'm going to do it as is upper. I feel like that's quite an easy way to show what I mean. So piece input would be the input that I would put into when I'm making the input here. And is upper is going to check whether it's upper. If it is upper, it's going to return true. And if it's a valid move as well as being uppercase, then it's going to allow the move. If one of those isn't met, then it's going to give an error because of the and. So if at least one is false, this is going to be false, and it's going to output invalid move. Again, Boolean logic. I have covered it in some of my videos, I believe at least 2 of my videos, so be sure to check them out. Probably the Python one or the Ruby one. The Ruby one is probably better for Boolean logic because it's a newer one and I was more experienced in making videos. So we want to do the same thing. Oops. Piece input dot is lower in this case because it's the black player's turn, so we want to check that it's lower. And that's all of the checking that we need to do for whose player's turn it is, because this is going to be looped. So it's going to be the white player's turn and the black player's turn, and it's never going to end. So also what we might want to do is, if it comes to this else, we don't want it to just continue to the next player. We want to keep it on this player. So how we would do that is implementing another while loop. Excuse me, as I said before, I do have a cold. So all uppercase, another while loop, and in that while loop we can check valid input equals false. Or actually, we want valid input equals true on the above line. Equals true on this line. And before this while loop, we want valid input equals false. So while not valid input, which means while this is false, do this. We could also use unless if we were doing this in Ruby. I don't think that Python has that. So I'm just going to do the standard while not, which equates to unless. So while not that, it's going to do this. So as long as that's false, it's going to be requiring input over and over again. When it turns true, however, it's going to come to the end. It's going to check, well, that is true. Not true is false, so it's going to exit the loop. We want to do the same with the black player. Let me just space this out slightly better. And as you can notice, in pseudocode, indentation is important, because otherwise you can't really know what's going on where. And I should really be using colons in places such as these. I have kind of been neglecting those. So I'm just showing you the best practice that there is, and hopefully you're seeing my mistakes and learning from them instead of copying me. There we go. I think that's all of them fixed. I am still going to keep the example of a chessboard down here. I might use other symbols as well, because it's textual. I'm not sure how I'm going to achieve the black and white feel, or as it is shown here, green and yellow, it really doesn't matter. But moving on, what I was going to do, I was going to put a while loop around this as well. So we have this, and inside of here we can make valid input equals true. So if it goes into the else statement, valid input doesn't change, which means it it stays as false, remains as being false, and so this is run once more. The same with the black player as with the white player, but we're checking different things. And that is good. So this is actually the main bit of our program. Maybe we can highlight it. To highlight it, what I am going to do is something like this. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to put a load of dashes, because it's going to help me. Even in the actual program, there's nothing wrong with separating stuff with comments if it helps you to achieve a good looking program. So, next thing. What is next? We want to, because this is our program, we haven't actually, even though we have all of these functions, methods, and classes up here, we haven't actually used them anywhere. So why don't we start by finding them a place. So these classes, we can also separate the classes from the other definitions. To do that, I'm going to use equal to signs, just to show a difference between things. There we go. I can just copy and paste this actually. I still have this word here. I think that I'm not going to need it this time. If I do, no big deal. I can just restore down. And I did actually just read that because that's minimized also. So let's find the places for these. When we are clearing the chessboard or resetting it, we can call it reset chessboard. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to call it clear because I started with that, just so that we don't get confused. Set up in their correct positions using classes, perhaps. For now, that should be fine. So we put an instance of a class in each of the spots that's required. And then that class has its own checks that will be inside of the class itself, instead of us having to do it on the go. So display board. Where do we put it? We have this function which displays the board. That shouldn't be too difficult to do. We don't need to go into too much detail. So after a move is made, we want to display the board. Maybe even when a move is invalid. So display board. To show that it's a function, I'm going to do that. To show that it's a function, I should probably also put parentheses next to all of the functions. I might do that while I'm not recording actually, just so that it's not very boring. Display board, I want it there, which means I also want it over here. And then after the movie is made, I want to display the board. Now, what happens if, for example, a user accidentally deletes what has been printed on their screen and can't have a visual of the board? Then what we can do, as being good coders, good software developers, we can make another while loop here. So where would this go? What we want to do is constantly check whether the user is trying to input display or something like that. So that would come under here, which means we will need an else if statement. So input, move to make. We can also have something like or display board. That's also acceptable. We can have else if. We don't actually have a name for our input. What do we want to call our input? We're calling it piece input. Okay, let's just continue using that. There's not that big of a deal using that. Else if piece input is something like display board. We can decide what they have to input later on in more detail. If it is that, then we want to run the function of display board, which we have predefined up here. So now we're getting into more detail, as you can see, and this is starting to look more like a program than like actual text. So once we try to transfer it to Python, we should be fine, and it shouldn't be that difficult to do. So we have done this display board. Else if. So that's going to skip the else and ask them for input again. So this takes care of the problem of if the input accidentally deleted what they saw or forgot or something like that. That should be fine. I can just copy and paste. Well, I don't have to really copy and paste it, but I will, because they're pretty much the same anyway. All I will need to edit is this is upper. There we go. So if they want to see the board once more, they can just ask for the board to be displayed. And that's being quite friendly. So what we're doing is, after a move is made, we're displaying the board to show the change that has been made. After they've inputted wrong input, we're displaying the board, just in case they haven't seen the board correctly, just to show them that this is the board, you can't make that move, or something similar. Same thing for the black player as the white player, and also if they forgot the board, we're allowing them to display the board if they have forgotten what it looks like. So while I wasn't recording, I quickly put the parentheses after the methods and functions. Next thing we need to do is check conditions of board. So basically we just want to warn the player or tell the player that if there is a special condition, or if there isn't, why not tell them even if there isn't? So where can we do that? Let's just find a good location. So before it becomes the player's turn, we can tell them that what's happened with the board. Or do we want to do it so? Just think about it. I'm thinking of whether putting it here and here or here and here. So if I put it here, that means that when I run it initially, I will be shown it as well, but I don't need it initially. Therefore, I should put it here and here, because if the game ends after they've entered their input, we should be told that it's checkmate, for example, or stalemate. So I'm going to put the checking code here and here. How am I going to do that? Well, even though I haven't really said what this does, no, check conditions of board, so it would either it would have to return check, checkmate, stalemate, or none. Those are the 4 things that it would return. And here, yes, here is where I said I wanted to do it. Indent it once with the while loop being there. Check condition of board. I want to do if check condition of board equals something, then else if, then else if, then else. So if condition of board equals check. Let's start with check. I feel like that's simplest. We can colon, let's not forget that, colon, output you are in check, capital Y, because that's bugging me. Try to protect your king or something. We can have some message like that, for example. Else if I can spell it correctly, else if, there we go, check condition of board equals checkmate. In that case, we want to output something like you have, would we want to say you have lost or you have won? Well, if the white player has made the move, then white player has won. We can just say white player has won. Congratulations. Or we could say black player has won, has lost, sorry, but I'm going to announce the winner instead of the loser. I feel like that's nicer. We can also have another thing to check, so else if stalemate. Here we go. Stalemate. There are multiple conditions of stalemate, and repetition is one of them. I know that, what's the other one? When no pieces can be moved by one of the players is one of them. Is also. We can, again, output, oops, wrong key, output, no player, stalemate, no player has won. And then else, and we can use else because our function, our function can only return 4 things. That's how we are going to make it work. Now, if it returns something else, then we've made the function wrong. It's not that this is going to be wrong. Our function is always going to be returning one of these 4. Else, the else is going to be none, which means the conditions are normal. And we can say something like output play on. Or if we wanted to, we could just say nothing. It really doesn't matter, it's up to you. If it was up to me, I would do this, play on, no special conditions, something of those words. And I think that that's going to be it for today. So as you can see, we've developed our program slightly more, we've thought about more of the details, and we've actually put in things into the actual part of the program that runs, as to compare what we had previously was just random bits here and there. What we can also do actually before we end is separate the functions from the classes as well, if we really wanted to, which actually I'm going to do while I'm not recording. So thank you for watching this video. If you learned something new, if you're enjoying this course so far, then please give me some feedback. I would really like to know what you're thinking about this course, because it's not Codecademy, it's something new. I feel like we're doing quite fine. I think that it's enjoyable. I hope it is enjoyable for you. I know that these are just the starting stages, and it might be slightly boring because we're doing pseudocode and not actually programming, so we can't actually see the result of what we've done. but hopefully we can move on quite soon. And we haven't actually done that much programming. It's only about 45 minutes of programming if you think about it. But yeah, until the next video, thank you so much for watching. Feedback would be appreciated once more, and goodbye.